Hi guys. Like I said, I was gonna have another lecture video for you guys today. Today I'm gonna talk about some things that were going on during this time frame out west, as opposed to what the book focuses on, which is more of the industrial revolution and the mass immigration to the cities on the East Coast. So I'm gonna share my screen, hopefully. Okay. So who were the Hodges? For those of you that do not know, most of you probably don't. Wichita has it's the largest accredited living history museum west of the Mississippi, and it covers basically 1870 through 1890 is roughly what their mission covers, and that is basically the times that how Wichita, um, the times that Wichita grew into a town. It was founded in 1868 and then grew during that time frame. This class ends in 1877. That is the end of the Reconstruction era. Prior to this time, um, and after the end of the Civil War, former slaves had a choice. They could stay in the South and be subject to the discrimination and Jim Crow laws and things that happened once the troops were pulled out of the South, or they could move north, where there was work and factory jobs, or they could move out west, where the cattle industry and the railroad industry were all meeting, and homesteading and all this other stuff that was going on in Kansas and parts of Oklahoma, parts of Texas, parts of Colorado, places, basically the High Plains, the Great Plains, that region. And one such gentleman, by the name of, I always get it confused, Wesley Hodge. He actually had moved from Mississippi in 1876, and he was a blacksmith. He was an African-American blacksmith, and he was able to move to Wichita, to a city that was growing, that had plenty of work for him. At the time, Wichita growing was actually very open, and it was a place that African Americans actually felt comfortable. That changed towards the 1960s, like it did in a lot of the U.S. Wichita, unfortunately, or Kansas, unfortunately, did have their own Jim Crow laws as well, and separate but equal doctrine, which we'll get into once we get to that. But Wichita at the time was a place that was friendly and open for African American migration, and it was a place that they could come and be successful. They basically just, like I said, it was a place that there are statistics here in the article. 3.2% of the city's population in 1775, and then it kind of evened out after that. One of the cool things well, why this is important to me is I actually volunteered, and still may when I go home, at Cowtown, where I would dress up and interpret history for the people that were there, and the Hodge House was actually one of my places that I interpreted. And one of the very cool things is the Hodge House was originally thought to be the parsonage of this building right here. This was a church. This is what it looks like now. Hodge House is this greenhouse right here. If you can see my mouse, this big house here is not part of that. This is the inside of Hodge House. And this is, okay, right here then. So this article does include the outside. Um, what is cool about what happened with the Hodges? So originally that house there on the museum campus was next to a church on the museum campus, and they interpreted that as the Presbyterian church and then the parsonage of the Presbyterian church. Through research, actually within the last 2 decades, they found out that actually the house and the church had much more history. So unfortunately, Wesley Hodge died at the age of 45, about 9 years after they moved to Wichita. And in that time, he was able to they were able to save money. And after his death, his wife Millie went on to purchase this church that we saw, was able to have it moved next to their home, which is the home that you see in the picture. And she actually ran a boarding house, and it was a successful boarding house. It was considered one of the it was a first-class hotel for African Americans that were visiting the city. And she was actually able to support herself and her kids throughout her lifetime, using with what she was able to do with the money she was able to make from the boarding house. And they didn't know that. They just recently, I think that article is from 2011, had found this out. And Millie Hodge they unearthed a lot more history about her, and she was actually inducted, into one of the founding African Americans in Wichita. And so just a really cool story I want to share. While Eastern Europeans were coming from the east and filling up the cities and the tenements to work in the factories, there were several other groups of Europeans and African Americans, the Irish, the Germans, and others were out here in the West, homesteading, running cattle, and trying to make a living out here on the prairie. And so it's just something I wanted to share with you guys. If you're going through this week's materials, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And so I like I said, I just wanted to share this little piece of history with you. I recommend reading the article and checking out Old Cowtown. If you're ever in Wichita, if you want to check out their website, it's the Victorian era actually started when Queen Victoria became queen, which was in the 1840s, and she was queen until 19 I'm not the English history expert, but I believe it was like 1900, because that is the general consistent end of the Victorian era is 1900. And so at Old Cowtown, what was kind of cool is, as a volunteer, it's not optional. You have to dress from head to toe in historical garb. And it can't be fake. It has to be materials that would have been used then. And so it's I believe I had 6 different pieces of clothing that went on underneath just my overdress. So it was it's a very, very interesting way of life, and especially these growing cities out here in the Midwest, Wichita, Amarillo. Amarillo is a little bit later on, but Wichita, Kansas City, this is the time when these cities were growing and becoming major metropolitan areas, major railroad crossings. Obviously, the railroad had a huge part in this, and that it's kind of something we do talk about the railroads with the robber barons, but we don't really touch a lot of it during this exact time frame. But as you guys know, the railroads were a huge factor in the settling of the West, in the expansion west. And so yeah, thanks thanks for listening to a part of history that I think is very interesting. I've actually visited Millie's grave, and she, like I said, she died at the age of 87, and just based on her own abilities and the success that her and her husband were able to find in Wichita, she was able to support her family even on past her death. So yeah, just a great story. And if anybody else has you come across this and you find something cool that you want to share with the class, um, feel free to do that. There's, I believe, an email function where you can email everybody. If you want to email it to me and I can check it out and I'll forward it to everybody, please feel free to do that. I'm open to hearing anything and considering anything that you guys come across on your own. So with that being said, that's the last lecture I'm going to do for the week. It has been a pretty wild first week, and I hope that everyone is doing okay. I want to reiterate that this class is a lot of information crammed into an 8-week course. So that's why the quizzes are open book, because I want you to look all that stuff up if you have to. And if you do have any questions, if you come across a quiz question that is funny to you, maybe you got it wrong and you think you should have gotten it right, feel free to reach out to me. It's always possible I made a mistake, or it's possible that the answer, you might be able to justify why you think your answer is right. So make sure you do that as well. I'm going to stop sharing. But thank you guys. Once again, please let me know if you're struggling, if you need help. I am an email away, and we'll be a phone call away once we figure out what my phone number is going to be. So have a great day, guys. Great weekend. If any of you are on campus and are on any sports teams, good luck. And the rest of you, all my adult students that have jobs and kids to take care of, may you get through this week as painlessly as possible as well. Thank you.